After however many hours you spent on this game and however much money you spent on premium time, you have finally made it to top tier. And you might be having some trouble in these matches, and today I'm going to try and help you out a bit. So with the addition of the F14, there's going to be an influx of players grinding their way through top tier to get it. And since that's going on right now, I figured it might be a good time to make this video. So today I'm going to try and show you guys some of the more basic things that helped me out when I was learning how to not suck in top tier jets in order to hopefully reduce your suffering. Everything I'm going to talk about today are really just general guidelines in top tier to help you out a bit, so you're going to see gameplay from a bunch of different aircraft going on in the background. There are a few points that I'm going to bring up today, but to start off, let's talk about positioning relative to your team early in the match and how that sets you up for success in top tier. Some might say this is a really basic tip, but it's a lot more important than you'd think. So if you're new to top tier, the first thing you might notice at the start of a match is that almost all of the players on your team go the same direction off the runway, usually to the left, but it might change depending on the map. You need to stay with them or behind them, or at least in a somewhat close proximity to them, and do not try and rush and go 1v8 with a wall of opponents that all have radar missiles. You will die. Like I said, that might sound really basic, but trust me, there are so many people that do this, and it just blows my mind every time. This rush strategy that these people do may work below 9.0, but it absolutely does not work in top tier if you actually want to be winning matches. When you stick with your team, there is a much lower chance of you being focused by more than one enemy, and if you do get focused, you've got your team to back you up. Of course, you can't rely too much on your team, because the average top tier player is too focused on the kill die grinding method. I'm doing air quotes right now, method. Now, if you expect your team to help you out when you're in trouble, you should absolutely make an effort to help your team out if they're in trouble as well, because in the end, you do want to win, and of course, it's just a good thing to do. So, being a team player and not rushing straight towards the enemy horde will likely set you up for a decent spot late in the match. So, essentially, to summarize this part of the video, team good, no team bad. The second thing I want to talk about today is extremely important and is only exclusive to top tier, and that is how to avoid missiles. Once you get to top tier jets, just about every other aircraft you're going to face has really powerful missiles. But there is not a single missile in this game that cannot be dodged or flared. In fact, if you're paying attention, the missiles are actually very easy to dodge. So how do you dodge missiles? Well, it depends on the missile and it depends on what direction it's coming from. First off, let's talk about IR missiles. In order to get out of the way of an IR missile, it really doesn't take that much effort if you're paying attention. In fact, it takes little to none. I'm going to keep this part short and sweet. In order to dodge just about any IR missile, all you have to do is A, drop a couple flares, B, turn off your afterburner, and C, roll out of the way a little bit, and then boom, the missile flew right by you. Now let's talk about radar missiles. This is where it gets a little bit tricky on occasion. Most radar missiles in the game are pretty easy to dodge, especially if the plane that fired it at you doesn't have a pulse Doppler radar. Something like the F4E. You know what, let's use that as an example real quick. So say you're flying your MiG-23. You notice somebody's got a lock on you on your RWR. As soon as you notice your RWR, you notice an enemy nameplate pop up and you notice they're flying an F4E. The F4E carries 4 AIM-7E2 dogfight missiles, and the missiles themselves aren't bad, but the F4E does not have a pulse Doppler radar. So this is just about as easy as it gets to dodge a missile. In fact, you don't even really have to do much dodging because all you have to do is drop a couple of chaff and then boom, the missiles just doesn't even see you anymore. Chaffs are very effective against non-pulse Doppler radars. Now what if they're flying an F4J, an F14, F4EJ Kai, a Viggen, or something like that? All of those guys are going to have pulse Doppler radar, so just dropping a chaff isn't exactly going to cut it. You are going to have to take some evasive maneuvers. Now, what do you do if someone is locking onto you and you know it's a pulse Doppler radar? Well, your first course of action would be to notch. Now, what is notching? Notching is basically the act of turning your plane to the left or the right as close to a 90-degree angle as possible, because when you notch against a pulse Doppler radar, it will be much harder for your opponent to maintain a lock on you. I should add that this is going to be a lot more helpful if you're really far away from your opponent, because if you are already fairly close within firing range of your opponent, it might be a little bit too late to notch. And what if it is too late to notch? What do? They've already fired their missile off, it's coming right for you. What do? Well, at this point, hopefully you're at a high speed, usually somewhere above Mach 1. Doesn't have to be crazy fast, but above Mach 1 is where you want to be. You can also drop some chaff while doing this, by the way, it's just for good measure. You're going to want to turn one direction and then immediately dive out and try and turn the other direction. Basically, what this is going to do is going to make the missile lead for your initial turn. It's going to try and lead really far while the missile's still far away, and when you're going back the other direction, the missile's not going to be able to pull enough G's to come back to get you, and then it's going to go whoosh right by you. Honestly, a lot of the time, you don't even really have to do this for most of the missiles. The only one that I feel like I have to consistently do this for are the AIM-7Fs. Which, of course, with the F-14 and the F-4J already being in game, you're going to see a lot of AIM-7Fs now. But as far as I know, the AIM-7F is still the hardest missile in the game to dodge, but even then, it's still fairly easy as long as you know it's coming. I think in the future I might go more in-depth on how to dodge missiles, especially as they add more and more modern and advanced missiles, because I feel like that might be needed at some point. But for now, I'm just going to leave you with this more basic explanation. So now that we've talked about dodging missiles, let's talk about avoiding the missiles being fired at you in the first place, which is going to lead me into my final tip, and that is situational awareness. Situational awareness is actually, you know what, not even arguably, it's pretty much indisputably the most important thing to have in top tier jets. And why is that? Well, the answer is missiles. You have to keep your head on a swivel at all times because missiles could be coming from every direction at any point. In fact, if you look at my gameplay a lot on my channel, you'll notice that all of my videos on top tier, I am constantly looking around me, but at the lower tiers, when I'm playing props, I'm not doing that as much because you don't really need to. Because once you're out of range of guns in those tiers, you're out of range of being killed. So how do you be more situationally aware? Well, there's this great function in the game called free look. Obviously, everyone who's made it this far into the game has that free look binded to something. So I'm not just going to say, you know, bind your free look key and move on, because that's obviously not everything there is to it. But you are going to be using that key quite a bit in top tier. So how do you become more situationally aware? Well, I'm going to tell you what kind of goes through my head as I'm flying around in jets. As soon as I start seeing opponents, I keep a mental note of where exactly I saw them and what direction they were going, at least to the best of my ability until my brain becomes overloaded, which, I'll be honest, happens quite a bit. And then I adjust my actions accordingly. Whether that be getting more aggressive, pulling out of the fight a little bit, going somewhere else where there's less enemies and more teammates, just anything I might need to do to make the match better for me. Now, I know those were the main three things I wanted to talk about, but there is one more thing I want to add. In order to do good in top tier jets, you actually have to try. I know that sounds stupid, but even with myself, I know if I'm distracted or if I get even slightly too aggressive, like say for example, if I focus one person, I will usually end up dead because I focus on them for just a few seconds too long. I'll get missiled from somewhere, which is annoying. And that's kind of the thing with top tier, you do have to think a bit more than you would in lower tiers. It's much less, at least for me, it's much less based on feel and much more based on brain power, which I don't have much of, which is probably why top tier is not exactly easy for me. But anyway, I'll stop the self-degradation, and I'm gonna leave you guys with that. If you have anything to add on this video, drop it down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think, some of your tips on top tier, because I know just from my experience since the F-14's been added, there are quite a few players out there that need a little bit of help. Okay, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, it really helps me out. And on that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.